Imagine you haven't eaten in 2 days. Yesterday, you followed a herd of wild horses across the valley. You memorized every turn they made, every broken branch, every footprint pressed into the soil. Tomorrow was supposed to be the hunt, but tomorrow never comes. Because sometime during the night, it starts raining. Not the kind of rain you enjoy from inside a warm house. This rain hits like a wall. Cold, heavy, relentless. It pounds the trees so hard you can't hear the people standing beside you. Water rushes down every hillside. The ground beneath your feet turns into thick mud. Small streams become raging rivers before sunrise. You tell yourself it'll stop by morning. It doesn't. The next day, it's still raining. Then another day, another week, another month. And before you realize it, nearly 4 months have passed beneath dark skies. For ancient humans, this wasn't simply bad weather. It was one of nature's greatest survival tests. Today, rain changes your weekend plans. Maybe you stay inside, watch a movie, order food, complain about traffic. But 50,000 years ago, rain decided whether your family would still be alive by the end of the season. Because rain didn't just make people wet, it changed the entire world. The first thing to disappear was the trail. Every footprint you tracked yesterday vanished beneath flowing water. Hunters depended on tiny clues, a bent blade of grass, a cracked twig, the fresh print of a deer pressed into soft earth. Rain erased them all. The forest became silent, not because life disappeared, but because it became impossible to read. And if you couldn't find the animals, you couldn't feed your family. But hunger wasn't the only enemy. Movement became dangerous. Bare feet slipped across smooth rocks. Hidden roots lay beneath thick mud. One twisted ankle could end everything. There were no doctors, no medicine, no one to carry you for weeks through flooded forests. A simple injury could slowly become a death sentence. Then came the rivers. The quiet stream beside yesterday's camp was suddenly roaring. Crossing it meant risking your life. Not crossing it meant becoming trapped. Every decision carried consequences. But while the world outside was becoming more dangerous, something even more important was happening inside. The shelter. The fire was dying. For us, losing electricity is annoying. For prehistoric humans, losing fire could destroy an entire group. Fire wasn't just warmth. It cooked food, dried soaking animal hides, kept insects away, pushed many predators back into the darkness. And perhaps most importantly, it gave people hope. A single glowing fire turned a cold cave into a home. Without it, the darkness felt endless. That's why experienced groups protected fire before almost anything else. Instead of waiting for storms to arrive, they prepared long in advance. Dry branches were collected while the weather was still clear. Fuel was stacked deep inside caves where rain couldn't reach it. Old embers were carefully protected beneath layers of ash so they could survive through the night. Some archaeologists even believe certain groups transported slow-burning embers from one camp to another, rather than risk losing fire completely. Because creating a new flame wasn't always easy. Sometimes, it wasn't possible at all. But even if the fire survived, a new problem quickly appeared. Food. Rain changed the behavior of almost every animal. Large herds moved to higher ground. Smaller animals disappeared into dense vegetation. Flooded valleys blocked familiar hunting routes. The places that had provided food for generations suddenly became empty. The people who survived understood something incredibly important. You don't prepare during the storm. You prepare before it begins. Long before the first clouds gathered, families dried strips of meat over slow fires. They stored nuts rich in fat, collected edible roots, preserved seeds. Every handful of food became tomorrow's insurance, because ancient humans knew something we often forget. Nature doesn't reward the strongest, it rewards the ones who plan ahead. And after weeks trapped inside the same shelter, the greatest challenge was no longer surviving the rain. It was discovering how to use that time to change humanity forever. So, the shelter was holding, the fire was still alive, the food hadn't completely run out. But after living through weeks of endless rain, something unexpected happened. People stopped worrying about surviving the next hour and started preparing for the next season. Imagine sitting inside the same cave for weeks. Outside, rain crashes against the rocks day and night. There's nowhere to hunt, nowhere to travel, no reason to waste energy. So what do? You build, you repair, you improve. Archaeologists have discovered thousands of stone flakes scattered across prehistoric caves in Africa, Europe, and Asia. Those tiny chips weren't garbage. They were evidence of constant work. Someone sat beside the fire for hours, shaping spear points, sharpening knives, repairing axes, and preparing tools for the moment the skies cleared. Because when the rain finally stopped, only the best prepared hunters would succeed. But stone wasn't the only thing being made. Animal hides that had protected families for months were cleaned, softened, and stitched together again. Using delicate bone needles, some dating back more than 40,000 years, people repaired clothing strong enough to survive another harsh season. Every stitch trapped more warmth. Every repaired boot protected tired feet from cold, wet ground. These weren't simple clothes. They were survival equipment. And while adults worked, children watched. Every movement became a lesson. How to strike stone without breaking it. How to prepare dry tinder. How to recognize poisonous plants. How to repair a spear. Knowledge wasn't written. It was demonstrated. Again and again. Until every child could repeat it perfectly. That's one reason anthropologists believe long periods of bad weather became humanity's greatest classrooms. The rain slowed hunting, but it accelerated learning. Then something remarkable happened. As the fire crackled through another dark evening, people began telling stories. Not stories to pass the time, stories to stay alive. An elder pointed toward the cave entrance. He spoke about the great flood that came years ago. Another hunter described the safest valley after heavy rain. Someone else explained where the deer always returned once the rivers dropped. Each story carried information. Each memory became knowledge. Each generation added something new. Long before writing existed, the human voice became the world's first library, and perhaps the world's first school. But after every tool had been sharpened, after every hide had been repaired, after every story had been told, some people did something extraordinary. They created art. Deep inside caves, beyond the reach of sunlight, prehistoric artists painted bison, horses, mammoths, lions, and mysterious symbols that still survive today. They mixed natural pigments from charcoal, clay, and iron-rich ochre. They carried small stone lamps fueled by animal fat into complete darkness. Then they painted. Patiently, carefully, beautifully. Nobody knows exactly why they created these masterpieces. Maybe they honored successful hunts. Maybe they shared spiritual beliefs. Maybe they recorded important memories. Whatever the reason, those paintings prove something remarkable. Even during humanity's hardest seasons, people still created beauty. Then, one morning, the sound changed. No rain, no thunder, just silence. The clouds slowly opened. Sunlight reached the forest for the first time in months. Everything looked different. Fresh green plants covered the valley. Small streams sparkled in the morning light, and the soft mud revealed hundreds of fresh animal tracks. Deer, wild horses, bison, boar. The same rain that had hidden the animals now exposed every step they had taken. Experienced hunters smiled. The forest was readable again. Within hours, families packed their tools. The fire was safely carried forward. Children followed behind. The hunt had returned. So, what did ancient humans really do when it rained for 4 months? They protected the fire. They repaired their tools. They taught their children. They shared their knowledge. They created art. And when the storm finally ended, they walked back into the wilderness stronger than when it began. That's the secret history of our species. Rain never stopped human progress. It forced humans to think further ahead, work together, and become more creative than ever before. Perhaps that's why we're still here today. Not because we conquered nature, but because we learned to grow stronger every time nature challenged us.